now it's time for another Board Game Brawl Top 10 with Nick Meetingham, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey folks, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2015 edition of my Top 10 Cooperative Games list. Now, I know a lot of you hate my lengthy, rambling intros, and if that's the case, there's going to be a timestamp at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead, follow that. That will take you directly to my number 10, and you can proceed from there. Fly, be free! I will no longer restrain you with my lengthy intro. For those of you that want to stick around and know my reasoning behind this list, please do so. I'd be happy to have you. So, I love cooperative games, always have. If you look at my top 100 list, you'll see a ton of them, especially in my top 50. I don't think that's any kind of secret. Now, the previous edition of my list was my top 10 pure co-ops list because I wanted to just focus on games that were strictly cooperative. There was no other kind of elements, no traders, no semi-co-op elements. You are all working together, full stop. That's how I wanted to go about it. For this one, I wanted to do things a little bit differently. A lot of people were complaining on my previous list that some notable games were left off because they didn't meet the restrictive requirements of that list. And for me, I don't always necessarily listen to people's opinions on things like that because it's purely subjective as to what should be on my list and what shouldn't be. But I kind of felt that too. I felt like there's games I really wanted to include, but I just couldn't because of the restriction I put on myself. And I think that's part of the reason why that video didn't do nearly as well as it probably should have compared to some of my other notable top 10 lists. So I wanted to come at it from a different angle this time. Because of that, this is probably one of the most difficult lists I've ever had to do. Definitely not for lack of titles to put on it. I mean, there's a plethora of options. Just a lot of what do they call that? An embarrassment of riches as far as games that could have made it on this list. I love cooperative games. But narrowing it down to the games that I felt not only are great games in and of themselves and are worthy of recognition, but games that, going with my new restrictions or lack of restrictions, that are cooperative, have some either semi-co-op elements or trader elements, but are not overwhelming, and it still feels like a cooperative game. Throwing those into the mix made it more difficult to choose. And also, games that I felt were more cooperative than others, in the sense of how much are you actually working together and influencing each other, and how much do I prefer to just play these games solo, because it's just better for me. I tried to take all these things into account, and so for that reason, if you try to compare this list to my top 100 list, and just follow from number 1 on my top 100 and back, you're going to notice that these things are flipped around on this list, because sometimes a game overall might be great for me, just no matter what category it's in, but as far as strictly cooperative, as working together with other people, some games are better than others. That's how I tried to go about setting this list up. Who knows if I did it great or not? I would say go at this list as, here's my top 10. I did try to put them in a certain order, but no matter how you look at it, these are just 10 great games. Don't try to overthink it with this one. I will tell you right now, there's one very notable game that is not on the list. I'll just spoil it for you now. Dead of Winter. Now, I know that, first off, I love this game. There's no doubt about that. It's in my top 5 games of all time for a reason. I love it. That has not changed since I've done both of my top 100s. And I know that I am diverging from my peers greatly here, but I will fight to the death saying that this Dead of Winter is not a cooperative game. It's just not. It doesn't feel like it. Rules, as far as the rules and the theme go, it's not cooperative. Yes, there are times where you do have to work together, but even if there's no trader in the game, and oftentimes there is a trader, and oftentimes it's me, even without a trader, you all have a secret goal. You are all working to win on your own, and I cannot consider a game cooperative when there's, even if you quote-unquote win the scenario, some of you win and some of you lose, even if you're not a trader. That just doesn't feel like a cooperative game to me. It's not only semi-cooperative, the makers of the game, the publishers, Plaid Hat Games, and the designers, dubbed it a new term, a meta-cooperative game. So, as much as I love that game, I just would not feel right putting it on this list. So that's why it is conspicuously absent. But regardless, I love cooperative games as a whole. I'm glad to be doing this list. I think that cooperative games are sort of I think they sort of hit their plateau. A couple of years ago, they were huge. So many cooperative games came out all around the same time. It was almost like a fad. It wasn't really a fad because it stuck around and you're seeing more and more great new cooperative games, but they're not as omnipresent. I think you're sort of seeing a shift back to a level playing field. But regardless, I think they are here to stay, and I'm happy to showcase my favorite amongst all of them. Let's get to it. My number 10 is Shadows over Camelot. Now, this was a game I struggled with as far as should I put it on the list or not. There is a possible traitor in this game. In fact, that's the big calling card of the game. It was one of the very first games to ever do this, as well as being one of the first notable cooperative games of any kind of type. But I felt like the majority of the time that I play Shadows over Camelot, even if I'm pretty certain that there's a traitor in the group, I still feel like it's a cooperative game. We're still very heavily working together. Even if you are the traitor, there's times where you have to really pretend like you're working with the rest of the group. And with lower player counts, the chances of there not being a traitor are higher. And I have played several games. I played a lot of games of Shadows over Camelot, and several of those games were just, hey, there's no traitor. We kind of all figured that out at a certain point, and now we're really just working against the very difficult challenge of the game. If you're not familiar with Shadows over Camelot, you and the other players are nominally Knights of the Round Table. One of you may potentially be a traitor working with the evil Mordred to bring down Camelot through siege engines and picks and Saxons and the Black Knight and the dragon and all this different stuff. I'm sorry, my dog is scratching at the couch. Even, there's the chance the traitor will be in there, the chance that it won't be, but regardless, you all have to work together making poker hands of cards to solve all these different challenges. Great game, very accessible to a lot of different people, handles a very high player count, 7 or 8 with the expansion, and I just love it. Also, fantastic bits. That is Shadows over Camelot from Days of Wonder, my number 10. I'm certain that most of you are sick of hearing about this game by now, but I'm sorry, I still have to put it on the list. That is my number 9, Pandemic Legacy. Now, the regular Pandemic is fine. It might have even made my list last time. We'll find out in a moment. I haven't gone over that yet, but I will go over it at the end. But the Pandemic Legacy just blows it away, the original. There's no reason for me to even own the original anymore. In fact, it's not in my collection anymore, but Pandemic Legacy, in fact, 2 copies of it are. I went ahead and bought myself an extra copy just so I can have it and go through it again, possibly solo. But Pandemic Legacy is... It's so tough to describe without giving away a lot of details. Of course, I can't do that. There's no spoilers. But the fact that every different scenario throws this new stuff at you, the game changes in drastic and dramatic ways. It forces you to work together like never before in the game of Pandemic. And there's so many little details to keep track of, and all these different roles and special abilities that you really can't alpha player game this the way that you would in the original Pandemic. You can to a degree, but I think this one feels even more cooperative than that one, where you really have to work together as a team. And the whole legacy element of permanently changing the board is just super cool. So had to put it on the list despite all of the hype. I try not to jump on the hype train. Hard not to do so with this one. It is currently the number 1 game on Board Game Geek. The last time I put it on the list, I think it was number 2. So it has made that leap finally. But that is Pandemic Legacy from Z-Man Games, my number 9. My number 8 is Sentinels of the Multiverse. This is from Greater Than Games. I think that a little bit of the shine has come off of Sentinels of the Multiverse as more and more cooperative games have come out, more games in the superhero genre, and I haven't played it that much recently, but it's still fantastic. The idea that you are all taking control of different superheroes and potentially coming up soon, supervillains, and working together against this one big bad supervillain in with a different environment. That's one of the great things about the games. There's so much variety, even with just the base game, but with all of the different expansions they've put out, you can have this wild and varied team of heroes going up against randomized villains and environments that all have different effects, and everyone has their own specific thing that they have to worry about. This is another game where it's really hard to be an alpha player, because, and that's one of the criteria I had on what games made good games on this list, because you all have such a drastic set of abilities with all different types of cards that no one can just keep track of what every single person is doing. You have to have faith in your team members and ask, okay, who's good at what? I mean, who's going to be our damage dealer? Who's going to be healing us? Who's going to be giving us support and buffing us and keeping all the environment cards at bay? You need to work together and plan out these roles and see who's going to be good at what. And then you need to focus on your own character and making sure you get all these different combos and different game strategies worked out for yourself together with the other players, if that makes any sense. And again, the fact that there's so many different characters and villains that you can face off against, it's just a great thing. And Sentinels of the Multiverse is still a great game to this day. I'm looking for maybe the next great expansion that really turns it on its head. But if they stopped putting anything out now, which I think they actually might be pretty soon, I'd be perfectly happy because there's tons of content out there. That's Sentinels of the Multiverse, my number 8 from Greater Than Games. My number 7 is Marvel Legendary, and of course I will give the caveat, just like I did with my top 100 list, that Legendary Encounters is a fine, amazing game, whether it's Predator or Alien. I have it on the shelf right here behind me, as a matter of fact, because it is so good. In fact, technically speaking, it might even be a better technical cooperative game just because of the way that it's set up and because there's no semi-co-op elements, at least in the cooperative part of each of those games. But I still like Marvel Legendary better thematically and because of all the different expansions that are out there now. And Legendary didn't make it onto my first top 10, I know that for sure, because of the semi-co-op nature of it, where you're getting points and someone's going to be the ultimate hero. But as time has gone on, I have found it super easy to ignore that, especially when you're fighting against some of the, as expansions have come out with these really difficult supervillains like Galactus and like Apocalypse, who you start off like, yeah, I'm going to get the best cards and get the most points. By mid-game, you're like, we're going to die! We all got to work together, and no one is arguing anymore. So that's why I feel this is way more cooperative than I had originally given it credit for. The only reason, in fact, I think it's further back on this list is because I found that I enjoy playing the game much more solo lately, especially when I'm trying out new expansions, but it's still a fantastic experience for at least 2 or 3 players as well. If you're not familiar with it, deck building game, Ascension style, randomized rows of cards, but in this case you have villains popping out into a city that you potentially have to take care of as well with your combat power, not just currency, which you use to buy all the Marvel superheroes. And you build a hero deck, you build a villain deck, you choose a random mastermind with a scheme, lots of different setup. That's one of the big complaints about the game, is how long it takes to set up, but there's tons of variety and it's just a fantastic thematic experience, something I'm always looking for in a deck building game, and especially in a cooperative game. That is Marvel Legendary, a deck building game or some variation of those words and letters, my number 7 cooperative game. My number 6, surprisingly, Kingdom Death Monster. And I know what you're thinking, Nick, that's your number 1 game of all time. How could it be number 6 on another list? Well, that's because even though Kingdom Death is an amazing game to play with other people, I personally have found more joy out of it playing it solo in the last few months since I originally did my review, because I have more time to play it solo. It's hard to get people to do a campaign in my group, and that time lately has had to be focused on Pandemic Legacy, and I'm trying to get into Descent again. And so I just don't have time to do this big, sprawling, epic game with other people that much. It's just been better for me solo. And it feels much more like I'm playing Final Fantasy, where I have total control over all my characters and what equipment they get consistently and all that different type of stuff. But it still belongs on my top 10 cooperative games list because it is an amazing experience to play with other people. It's great to go to the settlement phase and make all these different choices and life or death choices and argue about it with the other players, because you're all in it together, but you still like, I don't know, there's a lot of benefits to going cannibal, but it feels like the wrong thing to do. And having that argument with other people and deciding like, should we raise our children to be these militaristic warriors, or should we raise them with, love and with care? And that's fun stuff to talk about with the other players. It really feels thematic, and deciding who gets the best equipment and how you should strategically outwit your opponents in the showdown phase. A lot of that stuff, while I'm fine with it solo, and even maybe sometimes prefer it solo, it is fun to hash that out with other players. It definitely belongs on this list. If you're not familiar with Kingdom Death, look it up. It's a night grizzly, unless you're like under 18. But grisly nightmare hellscape. You wake up alone with the other players, and you just have to survive to begin with. You're even just called survivors. You're not warriors by any means, but you will become them by necessity. You fight monsters, you grab their skin and bones and organs, and then use them to make stuff back at your makeshift settlement. As you find more survivors, you birth new survivors, you start a civilization, and go out into the wild and fend off monsters and even nastier nemesis monsters that are going to come to try and destroy you. So, amazing experience no matter how you cut it. It's only this far back because I prefer it in another way, but Kingdom Death Monster definitely deserves a spot on my top 10 cooperative games list at number 6. My number 5 is Ghost Stories. This is a perennial choice for any of my top lists because it's just a great game. It looks fantastic. It has artwork from Piero, who's just a fantastic artist. It's from Antoine Bauza, who knows how to design a solid game. And it has a great theme of you being like Shaolin monks who are trying to fend off, protect a village from all these ghosts and demons who are coming at you from all sides. I love that every player has a distinct power and ability that they have to use and think strategically about to the best of their ability. Again, it's hard for people to alpha dog it here because you need to focus on how you're going to use your ability best and not worry about the other players. You have all these different tiles with different special abilities in the village that you have to make effective use of, and it really feels like you are all working communally together to build, to go through this puzzle, to work it out, to figure out who's best where, make sacrifices when you can for the good of the group. There's a lot of resource management in the game, but it's very exciting at the same time, and it's brutally difficult. A good sign of a co-op game, for sure. So, great experience, Ghost Stories, just a fantastic thematic experience, and one that'll probably always be in my collection. There's some great expansions, one of which actually turns it into a one versus all game as well, but even just the base game, totally worth your time. That is Ghost Stories, my number 5. My number 4 is Zenoshift from Cool Mini or Not. This is one of the newest games on the list, and I think that there's some of the games that came before this on the list, or that I've already talked about at least. I probably like them overall better as games, but the reason why this one is so far up on the list is because it is so cooperative. You are, giving players cards. It's a deck building game where you're actually willingly giving people your cards from your deck because it is so difficult and tough to survive in this game that you need to be giving people equipment and troops. It's like Starship Troopers, a board game where you're in tower defense, where there's vicious aliens of all different types coming at you in waves, and you have to put out your troops and try to protect your base from those monsters, and it is so hard. So you need to work together in that way, and you need to figure out in between waves like what equipment everyone should buy, who should take what focus and what bent. It's just so interesting and cool and just fully cooperative. That's what I like the most about it, is how much you can help each other out. Throw grenades in someone else's lane to help them out if they're really swamped, because you're all working towards the common good, and that's what I really enjoy about it. There's actually a Kickstarter for a new base game called Dreadmire that can be put back into the original game, and they even changed a couple of rules. So the game is primed and ready to get even better than it is now. Definitely deserves to be this high up on a cooperative games list. Even if overall I like a lot of other games better, this one just feels so brutally difficult and cooperative. That is Zenoshift, my number 4. Speaking of mind-numbingly or mind-shatteringly difficult cooperative games, we have my number 3, which is Robinson Crusoe Adventures on the Cursed Island. Oh, man. There's a lot of notable things about Robinson Crusoe. The difficulty is only one of those things. One of them is also the fact, as the designer Ignacy Trevicek of Portal Games has said, notably, this is a game that tells a story. That's the name of his book. Those are the kinds of games that he wants to make, and I think this is the most notable example of what he's talking about, because you, first off, again, totally cooperative. You are all stranded on an island. There's different scenarios, but the core of it is you are just trying to survive. And when I say survive, I mean you have no food, you have no shelter, there are wild animals about, and they are going to kill you if you let them. So you need to work together. You need to accept that you are going to starve. Some people are going to starve initially, but maybe you can just crawl and scrabble and get some stuff and some food and finally be able to feed yourselves. Oh, and then it snows. And now you have to worry about shelter because you're going to die that way instead. You're constantly losing morale, constantly gaining it back. There's a fascinating system where you will draw a card and choose to take a good option, but that means you need to put that card into the deck and possibly draw it later, because then it's going to be a really bad thing, like a snake bites you, or a snake bites you and now you have to put the card back in the deck because eventually that poison is going to get to you. Just really fun thematic elements. And again, it is so difficult that even though it's technically a worker placement game where you can just dictate to people what to do, you are going to be so overwhelmed so quickly that no matter how experienced you are with the game, you're going to be looking for advice from all angles. And I just love that whole thematic bent to it, that it really makes you feel like you are clinging to your life by your last breath at any given point. That's how difficult it is. But as stressful as that all sounds, it's a wonderful experience and an incredibly well-designed game. There's a huge expansion called The Voyage of the Beagle, which ironically, for someone who loves beagles as much as I do, I haven't played. It has nothing to do with beagles. It's about Darwin's ship. But still, I wish I had played it because it looks amazing too. But even if you just play the base game, fantastic. That is Robinson Crusoe Adventures on the Cursed Island, my number 3. My number 2 is even more new than Zenoshift, which I said was very new, and even more new than Pandemic Legacy. It might be the newest game on the list. That is Time Stories. Now, even I will confess, this is a controversial choice for a number 2. And it's way out of whack compared to where it was in my top 100. It was in my 10 to 20. So there were a lot of other cooperative games that were ahead of that. And I have to do it, though, because not just the fact that it's an amazing game by any means, but this is a game where not only do you have to work together to figure out puzzles and combat sometimes, depending on the scenario and what you're doing in the scenario, but you are role-playing together, you're acting out together, you're uncovering mysteries, the way that the system works where, again, I have to be careful not to give any spoilers, but to where you have to go to locations and you can be at different parts of a location, like on this side of the room and you're on this side of the room, or I'm in this, copse of trees and you're over here by this car, or whatever the hell's going on. The way that it works is that you can't just say, hey, here's what's going on. You have to try and describe it to people thematically, and you have to ask for help or sometimes go on your own. And the way that this all works together with telling a story, again, there's that phrase, telling a story, in investigating and deducing and coming together again for these puzzles and for combat, is just an amazing experience. So when I'm thinking about cooperative games, I can't help but put this one super high on the list, because you can technically play this game solo and you can technically play it with 2 players. It is nothing like playing it with 3 and 4 players. The communal experience and activity of it, of working together, is like nothing I've played in at least the last couple of years. It's an amazing experience. So I couldn't help but put it at number 2, because it just feels like that. Again, when you're looking at criteria of working together, no traitor, no semi-co-op elements, and just being much better with as many people as possible, that's why I had to go this high up. If you're not familiar with Time Stories, it's a modular game where you go on different adventures that are kind of one and done, but there's always twists and turns. You're telling a story with shock and surprise and awe. You're time travel agents going back and trying to fix time with a different story every single time. Just fantastic. If you haven't checked it out now, believe it by now. Believe the hype, because it's totally worth it. That is Time Stories from Space Cowboys, my number 2. Now, my number 1 game, cooperative game of this time, is the direct beneficiary of being so high up on my top 100 list, and unlike Kingdom Death, being a game that I much prefer to play with other people, on top of the fact that it's just a fantastic game, and that is Eldritch Horror. Now, I am aware of the problems of Eldritch Horror. Super long, super random, lots and lots of setup, huge amount of table space. But for those reasons, and because there is so much going on in the game, some of it, within game terms, literally crazy and insane, so much of it just super interesting that it's better with people, and it's better with more people, maybe not 5 or 6 as the game. I think you can go up to 8. Don't do that. Don't do that. But 4 or 5 people, though, can have a blast with this game, because it's like, well, I'm over in the Antarctic and I just found this awesome shotgun and now I'm fighting a Wendigo, And whereas someone else is like, yeah, well, my arm just fell off, and I just made a pact with a demon to get this cat burglar who's going to help me take out Cthulhu, who is now walking the earth because we screwed up too bad. There's just, everyone is going off and doing these globe-trotting adventures, but you're still working together because it's like, oh, I can't take care of this thing. I'd rather go and try to learn these spells that are going to help us go through the Mythos deck that we need to stop the Great Old One from awakening. So could you come over here with your super awesome shotgun and blow this thing's head off, please? So it's fully cooperative, where you're always desperately trying to help each other out the best you can, but you also need to split off and go and do your own amazing stories and then come back together again. To me, that's like the perfect epitome of what a cooperative game should be, is where you have agency in the game. You can go and do things that are important and mean something and not be dictated by what other people are going to do. But if you want to win, you are going to need to help everyone out as best as you possibly can and make sacrifices for the team. Sometimes really dire sacrifices, like actually blowing yourself up in this game. But there's no player elimination, and you can come back. It just makes the game that much more difficult. And it is very difficult, and it is very long, but that epic feeling that you get and experiencing that with other players. I have played this game solo before. It's not the same. It's fun. It's not as fun as rolling a 1 and having your sword kill a monster only to have it blow off your head at the same time with its venomous spit, or whatever the case might be. But then finding with your new character your old body and getting its cool stuff, and then going off and adventuring some more. So Eldritch Horror is the best of the Cthulhu games by far, but also my favorite cooperative game at this point for playing with other people. It blows away so many other concepts of what I thought I wanted in a cooperative game. And that is, there's some good company that's in on this list, that's for sure. So for it to raise all the way up to number 1, that's got to count for something. So that is my top 10 cooperative games list, but let's go ahead and stick around. Let's take a look at my top 10 list from last year and where those things fell and how they ended up this year. Well, that was a rough cut. Sorry, I wasn't quite as prepared as I should have been. I realized that in the 11th hour. Also, I said that last year was when I did my top 10 cooperative games for the first time. It was actually over 2 years ago, which surprised me. It was in October of 2013, very soon after I had started the channel, as a matter of fact. So a lot has changed since then, and of course, I will remind you that the first time I did this list, it was my top 10 pure co-ops list. So I did not include any game that had any kind of semi-co-op or trader element. Of course, things changed this time, so you're definitely going to see hear a much different list. My number 10 the last time was Darkest Night. Darkest Night would be in my 11 to 15, I think, for this year. It's a great game. It just hasn't been in the table as much of these other games. A lot of new games crowded out older games on this list, but great thematic game, better than the original Pandemic, but not as good as Pandemic Legacy. Then we have Legends of Andor. Then Legends of Andor, I have the new updated edition of it, which isn't really that different, but it did come with a new expansion, which we had been clamoring for before. So I need to play that some more. I never did complete. I tried, but I did not complete every scenario of the original. So I definitely want to do that, go through the expansion, and who knows, it might have a better standing in future iterations of this list. My number 8 was Pandemic last time, the regular Pandemic. And of course, the only reason it's on the list now is it just got killed by Pandemic Legacy completely and utterly. And I'd already been burned out on Pandemic. This one revitalized it for me. My number 7 was Conquest of Planet Earth. This also would have been an 11 to 15 game. This game does not get a lot of attention or love, and of course, it is meant, I think, to be competitive, but the cooperative mode is the best way to play that game, where you're all aliens trying to work together to destroy Earth, different alien factions. Love it. The best game from Flying Frog by far. My number 6 was Robinson Crusoe. Not a huge... no, it actually rose up on the list this year, which again is because, well, I don't know. I like it more. I think it has grown on me even more over time. And again, by the restrictions I put on myself for this year's list, where I just wanted to really focus on games that felt like they were fully cooperative, where you really were struggling together. Number 5 was Mice and Mystics. Oh, Mice and Mystics. I kind of fell out of love with this game. It's beautiful, it's got a great story, but as I've played more and more other dungeon crawlers and cooperative games, it just felt too basic for me, too limiting. I wasn't as enthralled with it as other people were, and I do really think it's meant for families, not really for me, but it's still a great game. My number 4 was Zombicide. I kind of fell in love with this one too. Zombicide Black Plague, which is on my shelf above me, is kind of reintroduced me to the series, and I do love it more than I even used to, but it's not my go-to cooperative game the way that it used to be. Again, my experience was much more limited 2.5 years ago. My number 3 was a Pathfinder adventure card game. That's another game that I still like it, but it's a solo game for me now. It totally is. Obviously, I like it. I've got like all the sets behind me. They look good on my shelf. But it's a solo game for me. It's just too tough to get a group to play it consistently enough to go through a campaign. And it's a bit too abstract for that as well. It doesn't really tell a story the way a lot of these other games do. My number 2 is Ghost Stories. Ghost Stories fell a little bit on this iteration of the list, but it's still a fantastic game, and that just goes to show that that game has stayed consistent as a great game on these lists. My number 1 last time, Sentinels of the Multiverse, and this is a result of making it pure co-op. This being one of the first games I ever played that I really got into, and not being able to put like a legendary on my list because my old restriction of not wanting semi-co-ops on the list. But Sentinels of the Multiverse, it's hanging in there. It's still a great game. I just don't play it as much as I used to, but there's as a pure cooperative game, it is really one of the best. Well, that is the last iteration of the list. I hope that this one sparks at least some debate as to what constitutes a good cooperative game. That's all I really want to do at the end of the day, is get you guys thinking and give you some good suggestions of games you might want to check out in the future. They're not all $400 games like Kingdom Death, a big complaint I heard about my last top 10 list, but hopefully you'll check some of these out. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you all for your support. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.